Test.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3.
Test. Test. Let's go ahead and get started. It's the 5 o'clock hour. So before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that some committee members, staff, and the public are attending remotely via Zoom as well as on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. When speaking, be sure to speak directly into a microphone so all comments are heard and the record of the meeting is accurate. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. The public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of this meeting. The public may also indicate their intent to provide remote public comment by contacting the clerk's office by 5 p.m. the Thursday before the meeting. The public will also have an opportunity to provide brief comments either by telephone or via Zoom from the 5th floor conference room of the Municipal Office Building. I will now call the meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order. Would the clerk please call roll?
Roll call. Henry,
Here.
Lopez,
Here.
Burns,
Here.
Stites,
Here.
Kane, Burrows.
Here. Thank you, committee. I do notice that we do have two members that are on remotely. So if I don't see their hands, will somebody be mindful to have me recognize them if you should have any questions? Committee, our first order of business is the approval of minutes from January 14th, 2023 meeting. And I do realize there's only one person on this committee that was here for all those meetings. So if there's any questions, let's please get them out of the way. If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I ask clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Henry,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. We only had two action items. That dispenses with one. So our next item up is the approving of the 2024 Interdepartmental Coalition proposal. It's a resolution authorizing the working group projects as outlined in the materials. And I believe we have Alyssa Marcy from our planning department to make the presentation. Please, Alyssa.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrows. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alyssa Marcy. I am the long-range planner here in the Planning and Urban Design Department. And I also serve as the coordinator for this interdepartmental working group. So I do want to recognize we do have some staff members from the working group here in the audience. And tonight I'm going to basically provide a brief overview of what our group is and what we do. For some of you that may be a refresh, for some of you this may be new. And then of course, approval of the resolution is the goal. You could pop up the presentation. Thank you. You can go to the next. Oh, I have the thing, don't I? Nice. Okay. So we formed in 2022 in part as a response to a lack of interdepartmental coordination that was occurring across departments. Our overarching goal was to be able to harness the historic funding that is available on the federal level to meet all of the needs that we have, and also to evaluate how we've done in the past in terms of accessing grants and make plans to better collaborate over the future. Historically, we've sort of gone through, oh, here's a grant, we have to apply for it now. What are we going to apply for it for? But now we're trying to reposition where instead we select these priority projects. And then we seek a grant that fits those best. So we're not so much in a rush to apply for the grant and we know that we have the best fit for our community. So this is a list of just some of our grant pursuits since we started in December of 2022. In total, we've submitted 19 grants and we have received over $20 million in funding so far. The numbers may be a little bit different on your current presentation. We have had some updates just even in the last week of grants that we've heard back from and things like that. But if you'll see from this table, it's important to note that on the match column, we're trying very hard to prioritize no match grants. So our county administrator had given us that directive, and that is what we are following. So we're either pursuing no match grants or we're trying to take advantage of programs that will cover matches for us. Okay, that works. Thank you. So that being said, there are lots of opportunities for us to pursue no match grants. Typically with grants, there is usually a 20% match requirement that has to come out of our money. We can also see 25 to 50% match requirements. However, Kansas City, Kansas is a Justice 40 community, which means we often qualify for no match requirements, and that's actually becoming more and more common. The state of Kansas just in this past year released the Build Kansas Fund, and that is a pot of money that's solely dedicated to providing matching funds. So even if it isn't a no match grant, you can apply for the match through that program. So that is something that we're also working with. In addition, KDOT has a cost share program. So if you're going after a project that meets certain criteria that they're prioritizing, they will help cover the cost of a match requirement. And then again, if possible, we'll leverage other grants that were awarded so that we're not spending money that we don't have. Yeah, sure. So Justice 40 is an executive order that was put forth by the Biden administration at the very beginning of his term. Essentially what it says is communities that are labeled as disadvantaged for various reasons, that can be low income, that can be health disparities, that can be legacy pollution, should be prioritized in grant funding. So 40% of all federal funding because of this executive order has to go to a disadvantaged Justice 40 community. And like I said earlier, basically all of KCK is a Justice 40 community outside of Piper and parts of Turner and like a little bit of Rosedale that's near KU Med. Should be good now. Okay, thank you. Okay. One of the things we did work on in this past year outside of applying for grants is developing go, no-go criteria, because we don't have like a single entity working across departments to kind of help us prioritize grants and projects. We decided that we needed to create some criteria so that we can evaluate grant pursuits as they come in, so that we're able to make the most effective decision. If you'll see, there's kind of two tiers here for criteria. A lot of these things are, pretty common sense. Do we have the staff to first apply for the grant and second to implement the program if we get the money for it? Is it going to benefit the community? Is it, do we have the support from our leadership, those types of things? So if we get a grant that comes across our table and it doesn't score very well in this first tier, we know it's probably not worth it. But if it's a little close, we'll go on to the second tier of criteria. So this has allowed us to really figure out, where to invest our time and what might be the best fit for our grants and our projects. So now I'm going to take you just very briefly through all of our proposed projects for grant pursuits for 2024. So for this list, you'll see that there are asterisks next to several of those projects. That is because they are projects that are carried over from last year when we went to standing committee and we had a resolution adopted to proceed for those projects. The reason they're still on the list is for multiple reasons, but one is that maybe it's a long-term project and it was only partially funded. Maybe it's phased a certain way. Maybe we haven't found a grant that fits it yet, or perhaps we were not awarded the grant that we pursued for that particular project. I'll just point out the structure based on this first project, but each of these will show you who the partners are involved, the cost and timeline if we have that information. Sometimes that timeline is hard to pin down until we actually receive the grant funding. The plans it was identified in. One of the things that we did in this group is at the very beginning in December 2022, we reviewed every single strategy and plan and project at the UG to prioritize which ones made the most sense. So they had to come from somewhere. And then of course, any relevant grants that we think might be a good fit for this particular project. So as you may know, we have the levee improvements going on. The Army Corps is heading up that project that's improving the levees for flooding. But we also have a project that would provide a recreational trail. This would connect our communities all the way from western Wyandotte County to eastern Wyandotte County and then over into connect to trails into Casey Mo. The second project is ongoing. This is the East-West Transit Corridor. So this is a multi-jurisdictional project between Kansas City, Missouri, the Kansas University Health System and KU Med, KCATA, Ride KC Streetcar. It's been going on for, I think, since 2022 now. And the idea is to connect Arrowhead Stadium to KU Med. We just finished phase 1.5, which was funded by a no match raise grant. And so that really identified the primary corridor and the mode of streetcar. So we do have remaining funding on this that will go into the next phase, which does include some design, but we will need to look for additional funding for construction after that. So this is a large scope. Like the rest of the United States, Wyandotte County has a lot of water infrastructure in great need of upgrades. Further, many of our combined sewer systems are under consent decree by the federal government. And what this means is we are under contract with the government to fix those that infrastructure by a certain date. Otherwise, we are fined if we do not meet that, meet those upgrades. However, there are a lot of available grant and finance opportunities for these. Some of these projects have been funded, but again, a lot of aging infrastructure in this country. So eventually we'll have to work on upgrading our water infrastructure across the county. The next is Northeast KCK Heritage Trail in the Quindaro town site. We did receive $1.2 million last year to start the Heritage Trail. So that will connect Caw Point to Jersey Creek, and that will be done in time for the World Cup in 2026, which is great because Caw Point also connects to the American Riverfront Heritage Trail, which goes straight into the West Bottoms. And we're looking for additional funding that will connect all the way to the Quindaro town site. And we know that there's a lot of interest in our community to do some development up in that area. This is brought by the fire department. So this idea has been growing for the last few years. It's really started as a regional training facility. There's only a few in this country, but the idea is to bring in public safety professionals from across the country for safety training and education. However, the idea has really grown to include more, such as a community center that can serve as a hub, providing everything from health services to childcare and other community events. So right now, we haven't pursued any funding for this as of yet. We're kind of waiting for some staff reorganization in the fire department, but this is something that we would still like to pursue. The next project is also a large bucket of projects, really. So we hear a lot about how our utility bills are rising here. We also, compared to the Kansas City metropolitan area, have one of the largest stocks of old houses. These old homes are energy inefficient. A lot of them don't have insulation. If you live in a house like mine, built in 1921, a lot of those things cost money just to heat or cool down. And we hear time and time again that we need to lower those utility costs. There's also a lot of federal money out right now to be able to do energy efficiency projects. So it's a great time to do that. This project also considers the fact that we have multiple minor home repair programs that kind of meet some of these needs, but need more funding. And also needs like remediation. A lot of those old homes also happen to have lead in them. So this program looks at adding more funding to meet these really important needs for our housing stock, but also trying to look at ways that how can we only go to a home once and do multiple things while we're there. Project G is our bridge projects. So we started with just the Kansas Bridge and added the Central Avenue Bridge this past year after we heard from the community that this was a primary concern. Both these bridges need a lot of work. So we have applied for the raised grant in February for Central Avenue that was submitted then. And we did apply for Kansas Avenue for the mega infra, but we did not receive that. So we are looking for another grant for that bridge. Next in transportation, our transportation department has been doing a lot of work to expand our public transit options despite budget constraints. Part of this is introducing microtransit into our community. UG Transportation did receive funding for some microtransit projects, one which launched in the fall in Edwardsville, their microtransit program, and there's also one that will happen in the Northeast probably this year. These are only pilot projects, so we do need money to sustain them. And of course, there's other places that would also benefit from public transit. The next is our urban heat island strategy. Our health department in partnership with the Johnson County Health Department did a countywide urban heat island mapping this summer. If you haven't looked at the map, I definitely recommend it. We are a very hot place, especially in the summertime, even compared to Johnson County. So this particular project is a newer one, but it looks at implementing strategies to address our hotspots in the county. So this is anything from planting trees or increasing our vegetation coverage to things like covered bus shelters. The next project is Rainbow Boulevard implementation. So right now there is a planning project, a traffic study going on at Rainbow Boulevard that's in collaboration with the city of Westwood, Westwood Hills, KU Med, and others to look at making changes to Rainbow because of safety concerns. That area is growing a lot and there's a lot of plans for the college and the health system to expand. So that project will wrap up probably in the next month or two, and we are looking for funding to actually implement those changes. Next is the citywide fleet electrification program. This covers many different aspects of the UG. So this is anything from our public transit buses to any sort of safety vehicles, fire department, public works, public health, our school buses. We've been in conversation with a bunch of different entities with this. And first we were looking at doing a pilot project that would probably involve a partnership between our transportation department and our public school system. Next, this is also kind of a broad bucket of projects, but we know that our parks need a lot of updates. We have facility improvements that we need. We have ADA compliance projects that we need to do, as well as general maintenance and programming. Within the last 2 years, Parks has received multiple grants for projects, including Boston Daniels Park, Clam Park. We're working on 6th Street in the Sumner Green Corridor. So this is kind of one of those continued long-term projects where we're just going to be looking for more funding to help Parks and Rec do their work. And the last project, this is also a new one, but something that we've heard from the community. We know that our K32 corridor needs a lot of infrastructure improvements. So we've added this one to the list as well and identified some funding for that. And that is also aligns really well with the levee betterment project. Those do coincide in terms of upgrading the streets for vehicles and then having that kind of off-street recreational component. So this is kind of in totality a visualization of all of the projects that we're proposing. I will just add that when we started this group, I think we had about 8 departments in the Board of Public Utilities. We're now up to 13 departments in the Board of Public Utilities. So we're continuing to kind of break down those departmental silos and see how we can collaborate and work together. Any questions?
Committee, any questions? Commissioner Burns.
Commissioner Burns, second district.
Who puts those in order of priority?
These are not in order of priority. These are the projects we pulled from many, many lists. So like what you had seen, the A through M or whatever, that's not in any particular priority order. These are all the priorities for like the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of projects that
Okay,
potentially.
so no one individual does that.
No, this is, so where all of these came from was things like all of our planning documents, the capital improvement plan that Public Works puts together. You know, just even last year when we heard that we needed Central Avenue Bridge improvements from the public when they had that special session, that came from there as well. So mostly these are coming from things that have been identified by the community through planning processes, or they've been identified in strategic plans developed by the department and leadership.
Well, the Central Avenue wasn't even in for the projects until late November of last year. And that was only because of Representative Pam Curtis and the neighborhoods of Strawberry Hill and Russian Hill and Polish Hill saying to us, or the old UG Commission, we need this. And my question is, why wasn't the planning department or the public works department, why didn't they start right away when they knew money was available for the restoration of that bridge and they failed to do so?
My understanding is that when we put Kansas Avenue Bridge on there, it was that it would not be quite as high of a capital cost than entirely replacing the Central Avenue Bridge. But again, I think the point in doing this every year is that we come back to standing committees like this and that we go to the public and we make changes as they are needed, because the reality is that things change all the time and we need to be able to adjust to what our leadership wants and to what our community wants.
Well, I get that the Kansas Avenue Bridge is important, but the Central Avenue Bridge is just as important from our friends in Kansas City, Missouri that want to come across, but they can't. They got to go around and around and around just to get here. You know, so I would think that would be a priority. And, you know, to go after grants that can help. And my understanding through Representative Curtis is that there is money out there, both on the state and federal level. And that if we don't apply for it in every way that we can, we're not going to get it. So I would hope that the Public Works Director would make that a priority, you know, because the World Cup's coming here.
Yep.
And if we got a bunch of barricades that we can't get over here, then, you know, it's just not right.
Yeah, I understand. I think that's why we also post that meeting with Pam Curtis, that public meeting, why this was fast tracked and we applied for the grant in February for the Central Avenue Bridge. So, you know, it is in motion.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Lopez?
Commissioner Lopez here. What is KCMO? Are they gonna throw us some money
For which,
for the Kansas Avenue Bridge goes across to their city?
that's a good question. I'll have to follow up with Public Works for that. Like I said, we did apply for that mega infra grant, but I'm not sure if that included them.
Commissioner Lopez, we have, it's been stated that we've been awarded 3.5 million from Sharice Davids and our other Congressman, Jake LaTurner. And there were 3 of them involved to ensure that we got that. That's Missouri participation. That bridge is jointly owned, I guess, by both Missouri and Kansas where they meet. And so it's going to take funds from both sides. I'm to understand that Missouri is a little further along than what we are in Kansas, but that our congressional delegation is doing what they can to continue to assist. So that was the latest that I got last Wednesday. So if that's any different, Alan, you've been in Topeka too. So, okay, very good. Central Avenue Bridge, had it not been for the commission carving out that additional opportunity for seeking grants, we would have probably lost the opportunity to come back and reopen Central Avenue Bridge. So the commission took action, I guess, a month ago, 2 months ago, in which to make it a multimodal roadway to allow our delegation in Topeka to pursue not only state grants, but federal grants through our congressional leaders also. So that helps us keep that Central Avenue Bridge viable, and hopefully we can get the resources necessary to open it. Any other questions or comments? Alyssa, I have a few. I just want to state it's this missed opportunity is the very first thing right off of the bat. Some of the things that are we going after the no match grants a little more aggressively than we are the 20% match?
We are trying to prioritize those. However, the caveat is we're still looking at the 20% match grants, but then leveraging that Build Kansas Fund or those other opportunities. So they essentially become no match grants, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I just wanted to ensure that the fact that we had right there, it says missed opportunities, then no match grants. If there was an opportunity to grab those quickly and start those programs. The next one I have is the Project F. Let me go back and look at Project F. I'm sorry, I made some notes as we were going through here. The countywide weatherization program. Then we had a program in place a few years back, weatherization program. I think the state funded that program for a while. Then the legislature stopped funding on that. Do we know if those organizations that are out there that were providing those services are still in existence or licensed, so that should we get these grants that we can step up and step right in right away?
Yeah, and we've tried to be, so ECAN might be the program that you're thinking of. We technically are still supposed to be serviced by that program, and they have not as much as we have thought. So that is why we're pursuing other options, and BPU is doing that on their own as well. And then we're also looking at bolstering the other programs that we have, because we know we don't get enough money from what we see so far.
Okay, thank you. And Project G, that was the Central Avenue Bridge. We already touched on that. The only other question I had, where are we on the seeking the grants for the biosolids? I believe in one of the reviews that we had, there was a $40 million potential for grants for the biosolids program. Do we know if we're still pursuing the grants on that to lower the cost of the overall cost of the biosolids project?
I will see if any of my public works colleagues have that answer. Yeah, we'll find out for you.
Okay, that'd be great. I think it's important that if this project's to move forward, I think there was much discussion and concern about the amount of the project, but the $40 million makes it a little more palatable and a potential to expedite that project in a more rapid manner. So I would hope that through Public Works that they would continue to pursue those dollars.
Okay.
For the benefit of the public. Okay, that's all the questions and comments I have. Are there any other questions or comments? Anybody online?
We do have a hand raised from a member of the public.
Okay, I will get to that. I guess if there's no other questions from the committee, I'll ask the clerk if any comments received from the public.
No comments were received.
Thank you. I'll now ask the clerk if anyone online from the public wishes to make a comment. You will get up to 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name and city of residence for the record.
We have online Beto-EJ. If you'll identify yourself, name.
Yes. Hi, my name is Beto. I'm with Vecinos KC for environmental health. I'm an environmental justice organizer. And I just had a question. I see all the funding for certain projects, but I still haven't seen any funding for the Armourdale stormwater project, which was something that the community really stressed on back in 2021 during the Armourdale general plan. So we'd love to get an update maybe at the next meeting, what's happening with that, what is it that you need, maybe to inform a design concept on what this should look like. But we would like an update on that. I think it's due. I mean, it's been 2021, we're in 2024, and that nothing has been done yet, even though The unified government went last year also on a whole, like a spree around the county to do a master plan. But we've been asking for 3 or 4 years and beyond that for some stormwater, a stormwater system in Armourdale. So just wanted to raise that. And then the other one, I guess I'll just, since I'm on here, and I have a little bit of time, the World Cup, I know it's coming, but I hope that you're not utilizing money that should be going to the community, meaning the community, the people that are most overburdened and struggling to pay their light bills and water bills and just survive, that you're not using that money to the World Cup. And I'll reach out to Sharice Davis as well and Cleaver and them to make sure that this money is not being utilized to fund things that do not bring a direct benefit to Kansas Cityans. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone else?
There are no other hands raised online.
I believe Project C and Project I dealt with the Armourdale issue. One of them was stormwater and the other one was the heat, if I remember correctly, for Armourdale area master plan.
Correct. And Beto, I can also reach out to you and give you some more specific information.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone appearing in person who would like to address this item? If so, please approach the podium and state your name and residence of record. You will be given up to 3 minutes to make your comments. Do we have someone? Okay, thank you. Make sure the microphone's on, Ms. Hicks.
Try that. Is that better? Yeah. Thank you. Pamela Penn Hicks. I have a question about what you're talking about today specifically. The K5 corridor has been locked off for quite some time. Is there a timetable on when that will be open off of 18th Street?
Ms. Hicks, if you would just please, we're not here to do question and answer. If you have an issue, please bring it forward and we'll try to collectively answer the.
Well, I'll just put that out there that I'd like to get an answer about that because it's been closed for quite some time. And I just wanted to know the timetable on that. So my remarks are about the stormwater fees, which place an additional burden on a populace that is breaking under the weight of taxation and service fees. The shock to the financial well-being of this community has been extreme over the last few years. Those in the low and moderate income range in the community are still reeling from the pandemic, inflation, high housing, and food costs. This community has reached its breaking point, yet our government officials refuse to acknowledge the financial pressures and continue to seek to impose taxes, fees, and charges without seeming concern for the community's well-being. An added insult, the new pilot program with waste management is another example of decisions being made that do not reflect a focus on this community's well-being. There are two issues with this plan. First, the current contract with Waste Management, formerly known as Deffenbaugh, is still in effect for another 8 years. Waste Management wants to change the terms of its contract to capitalize, in their words, of their representative, and Mr. Blessing. The goal is to create more efficiency and more profit for the company. No mention was made by him of how this would benefit the community nor the UG in reducing the costs we pay for service. Instead, when asked about community compliance with the new program, which includes a reduction in service with a biweekly schedule for recyclables, he stated that non-compliance should be met by a personal visit from the public works personnel to the offender's home to instruct them on compliance and then institute a fine for future non-compliance.
1 minute remaining.
What made this particularly onerous was that Mr. Blessing was a voting member of that committee. When asked by me if he lived in Wyandotte County, he replied no. When asked, why are you on the committee? He replied, I was placed on it by the mayor. This illustrates the concern that many in the community have about decisions that affect our pocketbooks. Decisions are being made by people who don't live here, don't pay taxes and fees here, and who, as in this case, have a direct conflict of interest and instead vote, not for the community, but for their own business interests and could care less about the impact on the people of the community. I wanted to share that with you all because you're all a part of that process. And the community is waiting and asking for some relief. And all these projects that we have here today cost major money, and I see that there may be some potential funding. But nonetheless, we want to make sure that you remember that the community is already strapped. And if you're going to do bonds or any of those other IRBs or whatever that you might want to do with any of those projects, which I did not see up there, so I want to acknowledge that.
Your time has
To make sure
expired.
that we are heard by you as a community.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Is there anyone else care to speak to this issue? Please state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes for your comments.
Louise Lynch, Kansas City, Kansas resident.
Somebody hand her a microphone,
I
please.
don't think I need a mic. Thank you for talking about the recording. When we were at the last storm waste management meeting, that recording is still not been put up. Can we know why? It has not been put up since then when we addressed many issues. I find that very disrespectful to the community, those that were here, and those that were wanting to know what happened at that meeting. That is not right. The other thing did want to talk about the wastewater, stormwater, and all the other fees that are going on that, yes, I believe are ridiculous. As I don't see the reason for them. There are other ways we can cut funds besides raising them, and to attach them to our utility bills is absurd. Putting people at risk for their lives when they can't afford those fees in full and risk in having the utilities cut off is wrong. But there are other ways that I'd like to know. We have all these grants and everything. And I know that the Public Works Director, Jeff Fisher, has been violating the, I can't remember that, all of the Hatch Act in regards to the way he's been threatening and stalking and cursing and doing all kind of things in public, taking things from these meetings and putting them out in the public and putting people's lives at risk. I expect to get an answer as to what we are doing with that. I know you can't give it here, but it is wrong. We just had to get a $2 million lawsuit last week because of the discrimination practices of Mr. Fisher. That's $2 million could have been put towards these fees. There are 46 discrimination lawsuits on the books against the UG that does not include the KCKPD or VP or any of that sort. There is lots of money that we can gather instead of paying lawsuits and the firms that we have to hire, because even though we have 27 attorneys, they can't defend. So we are paying outrageous amounts out of taxpayer dollars.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. I would hope that you would go after some of those fees, go after some of those. And if the administrator can't do his job, then he should be fired as well. But I believe they both should be terminated and we could save lots of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who could care to speak to this item? Okay, let the record show nobody else step forward. Committee, this is our last action item of the evening. Okay.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second, and I'm assuming that's for approval. Okay. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Could I clarify who did the second, please?
Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you. Roll call. Henry,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, committee. That concludes our meeting for this evening. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adjournment. I believe the second was Burns.
Yes.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Roll call. Henry,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Stites,
Aye.
Kane, Burrows.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Committee. The Public Works Safety meeting is now adjourned. As a reminder, the The Administrative and Human Services Standing Committee has been canceled for this evening. Thank you, everyone.